Welcome to the Art and Science of Complex Sales, proudly presented by Membrain. This podcast is your gateway to mastering the craft of modern selling. If you're passionate about growth, impact, and unlocking full potential in sales and revenue, you're in the right place. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And now let's get started with today's guest.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Today, I'm joined by Anita Nielsen. This is an awesome conversation. Anita's a sales strategist, a keynote speaker, a Harvard Business School coach. She's author of Beat the Bots and has gotten down and deep into the trenches of sales leadership, sales execution, and all around making it happen in B2B sales. This conversation, we're diving into what truly is separating elite sales professionals in the AI era. And that we're going through everything from self-awareness and critical thinking to trusted advocacy and human-to-human sales acumen. So it's a powerful conversation. It's about the future of sales and why the human element matters now more than ever. So let's get into it with Anita Nielsen. And we're live. Anita Nielsen, welcome to the program. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. We've been talking about this for quite a bit now, and I'm glad to finally get you on the show.
No, finally, it's exciting.
Well, and we're going to dive into some fun topics. But first off, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I never give the same answer twice, but what I will say is that I've been in B2B sales or sales support for about 25 years. Caveat, don't start doing any calculations in your head. I love all things sales. I'm a sales nerd at heart. I live in the south suburbs of Chicago. I wrote a book called Beat the Bots a few years ago, all about AI and humanity in tech sales in particular. And I'm a Harvard Business School coach, which is one of my other favorite things.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, for today's purposes, that is going to be what you're going to hear about it.
That's wonderful. Have you ever seen the movie Groundhog's Day?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to say this. Anita Nielsen, prognosticator of prognosticators. No, but actually we were just talking about that is the Beat the Bots in 2019. You had a great foresight into what was going on in market. And today we're going to be talking a whole lot about human to human interaction. But tell me a little bit about the past 7 years from your view. Like, how have things changed and exploded in terms of AI and bots in the world?
Yeah, it's bananas. I think about it every day. So I wrote the book probably about 2018. It got published in 2019. And when I wrote it, it was on the heels of, I don't even remember which publication, but one of the well-known publications put out an article that said, B2B sales is dead, which I personally took offense to that, right? Being the person that I am for my salespeople. And it was just wild to me how AI is going to replace everything, technology, bots, all of these things. And I couldn't see it in my mind. I was like, this can't be. It's not. And I don't know if I was stubborn on the humanity piece, but I wasn't going to have any of it. Salespeople would come up to me and be like, hey, is this BS, Anita, or is this real? And I got tired of just telling people. So I said, you know what? This would be a good thing to write a book about and just get the message out there, because it was genuinely frustrating and scaring people that I protect and care for, right? B2B salespeople out there. So that is why I wrote it. I had never had an intention of writing a book. A lot of work, a lot of time and energy, but it had to be done. And it reads kind of like a love letter to salespeople, if I'm honest. And that's what it was. It was just like, look, y'all don't have to worry. Just do these things. Be more human, the things that machines can't do. And here we are. Back then, there was no ChatGPT. I had no earthly clue about it. And so here we are. Wild.
Well, it is absolutely wild. And well, thank you for that passion and love for B2B sales and the people that are in it, because I always tell people there's no better profession if you want to really make an impact and be able to make an impact. But let's dive into that human to human. Like, what are the skills that you're seeing today, the skills and the mindsets that people need in human to human selling?
I know there's a real risk of coming up with too many, right? So what I had to do, I've been working on this, distill some of them. And the way I look at it, mindset is what informs behavior, actions, and the skills that you're going to hone. So really, it's having the mindset that is aligned with good intention, wanting your buyers to succeed based on their definition of success. So that's not even necessarily a skill yet, but you got to have your head on straight before you're even going to talk about doing well at the skills, because otherwise you won't be able to nail the skills anyway. And then self-awareness is another one, which one of my hills I'll die on. That is a skill you can develop. It just takes time and practice. And then from there, you're looking at things like really reading your buyers, understanding your buyers and through like a behavioral lens, curiosity. But that one goes hand in hand with attuned listening. So this is a pair. It's like a buy one, get one. You have to be really curious, genuinely wanting to learn what matters and what is important to your buyer, because that is how you will be able to help them, which is what your mindset is all about. And then attuned listening is not average listening and waiting, just basically listening to someone, waiting to figure out what you're going to say next. It's actually listening to the things that they're saying and maybe even not saying. So being in tune with like body language, tone, all of those things. And then the big one that I think is so important is critical thinking. This and judgment. This is one of those things that the machines have not figured out yet. AI just can't do it. But it's about looking at the full picture and really poking holes in it and trying to see what is it that either yourself or the buyer is missing here, and how do we address that. So just looking at everything through this lens of, is this for real? Does this matter? How does this matter? So critical thinking is super important. Then ultimately, if you do those things right, you're going to end up not being a trusted advisor. So quick spiel on trusted advisor. You hear that. I've been hearing that for decades, I feel like, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's table stakes. Like today, there is no, you can't not be, if you're going to be selling, especially tech, you can't not be someone who's trusted. You have to have that. But to me, what is the differentiator now is trusted advocate, non-advisor. Advocate basically means you adopt that buyer's plight as your own, right? You take on their goal as if it's your own. You go from being an I selling to a we solving kind of scenario. And if you do all the human to human skills right, that is where you land. Beauty of advocacy is once you get there, you can actually help influence the buyer to make a decision in your favor. So yeah, so spewed all that out at you, but I'm a little passionate about it if you can't tell.
I love it. No, it's great. I'm going to jump back. Into, I think it's the second or third bullet point you said. Let's talk about self-awareness, because you said it's a hill you're going to die on. Let's go for it. I love it, because I don't think it's defined. That's not defined in most sales books, right? So let's talk about what that means to you and why you think it's so important to B2B selling.
So one of the things, meeting with sales leaders for years, I constantly hear this whole, they're just not self-aware. They're not reading the room. They don't know what they're doing and they're not paying attention and all of these things. And the reality is that may be true, but what have we done to help empower salespeople to recognize who they are and how they're showing up? So just knowing the impact that you're having in the room that you're in. And that is everything from like your physical presence to your tone, to your body language, all of those things, being aware and ensuring that for our purposes, ensuring that all of those things are in line with what you're trying to achieve, which is help your buyer succeed based on what their definition of success is. And it's really just kind of that simple. If you're not a natural at it, you ask yourself a few questions like, okay, what is that buyer perceiving about me right now? Like, what is my body language telling these people? Am I speaking in a tone that's going to resonate with these people? Are those types of questions that make you orient yourself around yourself so that you can then adapt if needed based on what that moment needs. So is there a clear definition? Probably not. I haven't figured it out yet. I will by the time I start training my boot camp, but it's about knowing who you are and the impact that you're having on that space because of it, if I had to distill it.
Just read an article, and I will see if I can link it to this, but it actually talked about this concept of metacognition in sales. So how to think about how I'm thinking, how to think about how I'm being perceived, and how to do that as one of the core skills of. But it also talked about the rapid decrease in this ability with the advent of the screen and the phone and just you see the advent of the practice. People know how to do it on Zoom, but they don't necessarily know how to do it person to person. How are you finding that today?
So first, metacognition is just such a brilliant thing. And so one of the things I've learned about salespeople over the years is that there's a tendency for groups of salespeople to have more neurodivergence than others, right? And part of some of that, like, ADHD, not to get too psychology, but it really does, you have a gift for metacognition if you use it typically with that neural makeup. And so for metacognition, I don't know that I haven't seen it necessarily diminish in the types of people that have been carrying it, but is it going to grow in the people that don't have it yet? I'm not seeing that right now, unless there's a really good concerted effort to do that. Because the screens are, I mean, like at any point in time, if I want to silence my own brain, I just put on a screen. And what does that do? You just silence the thought that you need to grow, to learn, to interact with humans. Just real quick thing on that. So talking about face-to-face, it's critical. And so this next generation of people that we have, I've got 2 Gen Z at home, and I'm proud of them on this point. But I was sitting next to a woman on a plane, and we were just talking about kids, and she was talking about how her son was applying to this like really prestigious school, and they had to have an interview with like the dean or whatever. And you have to wait a while before they give you a decision. I'm going somewhere with this. And the dean came out and shook her hand, and she's like, "You can't tell me that he's accepted yet." And the dean said, "Yes, I can. Do you know how hard it is to have students come in here who have that kind of eye contact?" I was floored. This is like now 2 years ago. I was floored. I was like, you know what? Yes, that is 100% true. We're teaching them to look down and to look at anything but that human that they're interacting with. So screens are awesome in a lot of ways, but doing a big disservice in terms of the human-to-human connection piece. And COVID didn't help.
Oh, no, it didn't. It didn't at all. I just experienced graduation season across.
Yes.
My son just graduated from high school. It's really exciting for him and exciting for the family. But it's
huge milestone.
Yeah, it's a huge milestone. But and I also work with a lot of high school kids in ministry. But it's very interesting.
Yeah.
There's a subset that really can. I think everybody can develop that skill, but there's also a large portion that just don't have it. And this is, the next level into the workforce. And so I really appreciate you diving in and saying, okay, we need to look at this self-awareness, metacognition as a skill that we can develop, because it's not taught, it's not taught. It's not natural at this point because we're buried in screens. And so I really appreciate that. That's awesome.
I feel like it's something that we used to say about empathy a decade ago, right? Or maybe a little bit more. We used to say, okay, people are coming into the workforce that don't get it. And so that's when you saw all these leadership books coming out about empathy, et cetera. It's similar, right? The environment that we're in shapes the behaviors and the actions and the mindset that we have. But as I think, especially business organizations, if we're going to be bringing on the kind of talent we want, we have to be willing at some point to help coach and teach that stuff too. And I think for sales leaders in particular, that is a big challenge.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And that ties to something as well that I believe we need to invest in, that you brought up, that I love as a skill, is critical thinking and judgment. We used to think of this as got to understand the business basics of, what you get in, and at least understand that. But I really do think it's gone well beyond that, and always has been well beyond that for really highly skilled sellers. But how do we help people coming in, as well as people that have been in the workplace for a while, increase that skill set? Because it's something that's truly, truly important.
Yeah, it's tough. Again, it's going to be teaching them the types of things you can do to like model the behavior and coach and teach them on that. And judgment. So one thing about salespeople that frustrates me sometimes is you'll have a salesperson that has been selling into the same industry for a decade or more. But yet when they go talk to a customer, they're not sharing the differentiated insight that comes from all that experience, right? And that's really what critical thinking is, a huge component, like looking at a situation and bringing your perception, your worldview to it and applying it to pressure test it. Like, is this real? What's going to happen? So the example I like to give is, say you're selling a SaaS product or technology, and your customer thinks that they're going to implement it in 8 weeks. Darn well that is not real. And so as a critical thinker, you're thinking through, what do I need to tell them? How do I coach them? How do I guide them to let them know this ain't happening? let's set you up for success internally by doing XYZ. And so it's bringing that extra piece. Now, an average seller would just be like, cool, let's implement it, right? But the human to human customer advocate sales professional, not them, they're not going to let that customer fail on their watch, right? But it takes critical thinking to get to that outcome. And so, yeah, it's teaching it like, what does this mean? What does this look like in their habitat? What's going to happen if we do it this way? What happens if we do it that way? Back to questions and curiosity. I mean, that's the root of it.
Well, you may have knowingly modeled it, but I think the other part of that is courage, right? The ability then to step into that and voice that critical thinking, even though it may not be the promise your customer wants to hear or your prospect wants to hear.
Yes.
And that gap between my ability to think this through and bring my experience to the table and the courage to actually voice it in a way that connects with the customer, that's that connection to trusted advocate, right? That's like
100%. That's it. That's the difference. That's the difference between someone who's going to be an advocate, maybe not even an advisor if you can't give that kind of guidance. But advocacy is about like, whoa, I own this result as well, right? Like my name is on it. I don't want this person to fail because I've genuinely invested the time and energy to make sure that they don't already. Not going to do it at this stage, right? And so it's things like suggesting, hey, who's the internal person for change management that you have right now? It's going outside of that. And the thing that's interesting, it's counterintuitive, right? Like you're afraid sometimes as a salesperson to go in and say something that might sabotage your deal. Wrong. What happens is when you do that, the amount of credibility you gain and the gratitude you get. I did something a long time ago when I was creating a new website, and my executive coach, who's kind of like a bully, made me go talk to my customers and ask them, why did they buy from me? I knew what my value was. Obviously, I've been doing it for so long. My content was beautiful. Well, except until I called my customers. What I had written down as my value proposition was not what was in the conversations that I had. It was, you're not going to let me fail on your watch. You've got my back. You answer when I ask you questions. You see problems I don't see. And that was like epiphany. I really dreaded getting back onto that coaching call next time, like waiting for the I told you so. She was spot on. What I thought was valuable, this is decades ago, what I thought was valuable was not what was valuable to that buyer, even though I knew textbook what was valuable to them, right? And so that was such an awakening for me. So anyway, extra story, bonus story for you.
No, that's wonderful. And that awareness, so we're going all the way back to, critical thinking, awareness, self-awareness, and all those things. It's and courage to understand that. It's really, really helpful. So when do you start to dive into this and you get people to that level of, okay, I'm truly a trusted advocate, what type of results do you then start to see in market?
You start to see your customer trusting you with things that an average salesperson isn't going to find out, right? And by that, I mean, by and large, it's their internal dysfunction. My observation over the years is it's usually not something in the pure sales process that derails a deal. It's organizational dynamics and dysfunction, right? That'll be the thing that kills it in the end, even if you do everything right. So they will give you visibility into some of those things, right? Like, for example, this new CEO just came in and he's brought in his cronies, and me and Walt over here are the only ones left from the old guard. And we need to figure out how to blah, 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 blah. Cool. What do I do with that now? As the advocate, I am not here to let that person fail against the cronies that came in, right? Regardless of what I know or don't know. Here's what we're going to do, because this is the message you have to take to your CEO. This is the thing that you need to say. Here's the results that we typically get. Setting them up to succeed is really what it boils down to. But it's that insight it's like differentiating insight. It's insight that you aren't going to get as an average, even a pretty good seller. You're not going to get that information, but it's taking it to the next level, because at the end of the day, the reason they care about that is their livelihood. And there is precious little that's more important than that. And when you can differentiate at that level, you're not just selling that deal, you are creating a customer for life. Like where they go the next time, their next job, they're calling you. The job after that, they're calling you, right? And you become someone who truly they know is in their corner. And why wouldn't you go back to that person?
How do you find people making that transition in their mindset and then their behaviors? Like, I don't know if that question makes entirely all the sense, but I'm trying to get to the heart of, like, okay, so the evidence is they give you the information that you need, right? But the actions that you take to get to that point, right? From I selling to we solving, where does that start?
I love it. It's earned. This is not a thing that you wake up one day in the middle of a sales cycle and figure out how to do. Because back to the self-awareness, right? Back to the recognizing that they have to feel your intention of wanting to help them succeed. Like if you walked in with commission breath and you have not done anything to make them think that you care about them, you will not, I don't care how good you think you are, you will not get to advocacy anytime soon because you've already shot that trust. Advocacy is a function of like trust and credibility, reliability, all those things. And honestly, psychological safety is, if I'm honest, that's probably the biggest one, which if you break that down, it's the same thing. It's listening, it's being curious, it's genuine concern, all of those people-y things. Look, here we are, humanity, right? The things the machines haven't figured out how to do yet. And so you will not get there. There will not be a moment where that transitions if you do not have the other skills in front of it. But the way that you kind of know is you earn it along the way, and you can actually feel it and sense it, because every time you meet them, you'll get a newer spin or something more than they typically you would think would tell you, right? Next thing you know so much more about their life. That's a real good indicator too, right? And people say, oh, don't be friends with your customers, whatever. Be a person that customer can trust. And if that means that they let you in on what's happening in their life, cool, honor that. But there's no, don't do this, don't do that. It is be the person that buyer needs to get to where they need to get. You will be irreplaceable. Machine, bot, competition, status quo, can't touch you.
So let's talk about that term irreplaceable. And let's dive in a little bit to where things are being replaced. Like, what worries you most about how you see companies currently using AI in market? And where do you see that backfiring?
Yeah, I think that AI is good at, so I wrote beat the bots. I'm not so much beat the bots anymore. I'm more like, you can't beat them, so join them, right? Like let the bots do the things early on in the sales cycle. Let them help you write an outbound outreach message. Let it help you do research. All those types of rote things that don't require judgment, don't require you to, be able to read buyers, or that curiosity doesn't need that. So do all of those things. But then when it comes to those moments where coming in as a human is what matters, don't go in with a script like a robot. And that's the part that kills me, is when a lot of trainings will give people like, here's your discovery checklist. Cool. You take it into the meeting and you sound like a robot, and B, like you're interrogating the person. It doesn't make sense. AI created this really cool list of questions, but they can't, might as well gotten them from the machine, right? Like if you're bringing information to your customer, trust that they've done their research through AI already. So when you get to them, you better know from a human standpoint what insight you're going to bring, because regurgitating the data and information that they already got is not going to get you anywhere. And so things like clarifying, contextualizing, and counseling, all those things, that is the part that the humans get to keep. Anything else, back office, that is not going to impact that buyer's emotions really in any way, let the machine have it. But the thing is, the practical challenge, I think buyers have gotten, especially in tech space, gotten really excited about AI and technology. And so there's a hell of a lot of, let me buy this and put this in the tech stack and put that in the tech stack. But back to change management, not a whole lot of that happening. And that's the thing that's required to implement AI in a way that's effective. It's a whole nother show, but where I'm going, right? Like, I think that unless we start using AI in a way that makes sense in the context of helping that buyer succeed, it's never going to help you differentiate. It's just not, because any seller can get the same.
Amen. I just did a whole presentation on that recently, just in terms of contextual AI and where it fits and where it doesn't. One of the most critical things that I mean, we're singing from the same hymnal, right? So one of the most critical things is defining those human to human moments in your process, in what you do, and getting really, really good at those. And the interesting thing is you can almost become more powerful now because you're not constricted by some of the things you used to be.
Yeah, that's right.
Like listening, for example, active listening, you can be a much better, just persistent, dedicated listener, because for the most part, you're getting full notes, and
right.
so you're not
It's
trying to do the
taking-
outline right there. Yeah.
It's taking away it's taking away that fodder for the human to human interaction, which is just bananas to me. If I had to break it down, I would say it's that early stage transactional stuff that AI is really valuable at if you wield it properly.
Yep.
And then later, as you get into things like, fine tuning a solution or negotiation or the actual closing or stakeholder mapping, you need to stick that to the human, right? Because I'm going to know better than anybody if that CIO is impacted by the CTO or the CEO. I'm going to know what that influence link is, right? The machine is not going to know that. And so those moments of judgment that only a human can get, those are safe, at least for now, that I can see.
So I'm going to shift really quickly into a question that I love asking people, and I can't wait for your answer. What is the worst sales advice that is still being taught today?
Man, I'm so torn on this. There's like so many.
Give me your top 5.
Right now, I would say one of the things that kills me is this discovery checklist situation. How that continues to persist, I will never understand. You are literally turning that salesperson into a robot. This color sheet, that color sheet, stop. You're making them lose their ability to be genuine in that moment by giving them these things. So the other one is stop telling salespeople to ask questions like what keeps you up at night, because customers know that question. After like 5 million people took that training class, customers caught up. But it's my 6-month-old baby. What are you going to do about it? Right? It's a farce, like at this point. So discovery is one of my passions, because I believe that you often can win or lose a deal in discovery if you don't do it right. And so those things in particular, they kill me. Like if a machine can send a survey or a list of questions to a customer to fill out, you have done nothing to create value in that moment. And so do not take that away from salespeople. Just let them go in there and ask the questions out of curiosity, not go do this checklist. It drives me bananas. So yeah,
that's a big one. That's a big one. And it's an interesting one too, because I love having buckets of information that I strive to want, right? Yeah. But if I go in with the exact question I need to ask, I feel like, even in these podcasts, I don't like that. I don't like doing it, but I like where I'm going. I like to have that map. And I actually think AI can help us with that now instead of hurt it. It allows us to be a lot more authentic. Why does it still persist? Like, here's the 7 questions that you need to ask during a discovery call.
I think it's because sales leaders get really starved for like that tip or trick that is going to change the game, right? Like it's like that whole, what was it, like, snake oil and all of those things, right? Back in the day, it's like anybody that can convince me that I'm going to, get attainment higher or this or that, I'm going to go do it. And the logic part escapes because you are looking at this as a very emotional situation, right? And so you will do, as somebody whose outcome has to be X, you'll do anything you can to get there. And so, but that critical thinking didn't kick in, right? To recognize that, is this really getting me where I need to go? And plus, it's like sometimes it's like everybody does it. Why shouldn't we? Right. And there's a lot of great salespeople out there selling, trainings and things like that are good at convincing people to do things a certain way that is often A, counterintuitive, and B, just bad news for that seller.
Well, I've noticed at least in my own life, the collection of tactics that I've learned over the years, of the how to ask the questions or all those things. They're only useful if I take them and make them my own. Like that's why I think there's a scary thing for sales leaders to say, okay, you go out and make this your own, because you are you and you're not me, and I want to control it. And I've been in that spot. I've been that sales leader. It's like I've like
Yep.
been responsible for training teams that have to go out and,
They have to do it that way.
look good, be good, execute well. But that point of release and that point of, I guess, making it about coaching that rep to be more of them into that instead of training that rep to do exactly what I want them to do my way, it was a big moment for me.
Yeah, it's scary as hell because look, if you're one of those sales leaders that I talk to all the time that don't trust their salespeople to do the right thing in that moment because they can't read the room, they don't have the self-awareness, you're going to struggle letting them just go out and do their own thing. And so, but I think for sales leaders, that's a moment of growth as well. Like you just said, right? It changes things when you get to that level of understanding that, look, I'm going to have to take a chance on this. And what's going to happen is I'm going to find out which ones can do it and which ones can't, right? Yeah. And that's going to help me decide ultimately later what's going to be better. But I think if we do a big disservice as an industry, this is the other hill, it's to sales leaders. Like you get the top seller out there who's been killing it for years. Their only logical path for career progression is to become a sales leader. So you've got Mr. or Mrs. Lone Wolf out here, managing their own schedules, hunting, doing the kill, all those things. And guess what? Now you're going to get promoted and you're going to have to figure out how to be a shepherd. How's that going to work? That is like such different skill set. Forget skill set. It's a mindset shift that's wild. And so there's a lot of room for companies to invest in sales leaders. And that's my next thing I'm going to be launching. But we got to give them what they need. You can't just like assume, because what happens is when you assume that top seller is going to be a great sales leader is they start doing things like this. It's not that hard. I did this all day, every day. This is all you have to do. That's so demotivating and demoralizing to a salesperson. That is not coaching. That's like anti-coaching. And so back to the hill, we do sales leaders a big disservice. Most companies do. Some are getting better, but if I had to give advice to a CEO, I'd be like, invest in your sales leader. Teach them how to coach and grow their people.
It's the single, I used to say it was the single biggest leverage point that you could make. I think it still is. I think, especially when you have large teams, that especially all those every frontline sales manager, investing in them to help them become a better leader and servant and ultimately coach. It's like, it's a different thing. It's not training them how to be better at Miller Hyman, the score sheets or the call sheets or that type of thing. It's completely different. But it is.
And the machine can't do it yet.
Yeah, it's incredibly impactful. Machines can't do it. And what I've seen in terms of the AI coaching, AI coaching has been good in terms of just information
transfer. Yeah.
Information transfer. But in terms of changing behaviors, it's been more difficult for teams to adopt it.
I think it'll get better at persuading. I think it'll get better at persuading people to change sometime. I think that will happen at some point, but that point is not right now. And so that burden does fall upon the sales leader. So maybe the sales leader gets aligned with the AI and starts teaching the things that the AI knows to be the right discipline for coaching, whatever that case may be. But we gotta help sales leaders be their best. And look, what happens is if you invest in them and you find out after that course that they did, right, or that coaching that they got, that they're just not going to do those things, have mercy, right? Like be the merciful person that talks to them and says, look, you're not going to make as much money as you did as an individual contributor. You're not going to like what you're doing. Is this what you really want to do? I'll support you. If it is, we have to do some work, but think about it. And that's just like, it's such a human thing to do. And it's amazing. Sometimes sales leaders are scared to even do that.
I love it. That's great advice. As one last question before we cut out, but I usually say 5 years from now, but I'm going to go down to 3 because we're moving so fast. So 3 years from now, what do you think is going to separate the elite sales organizations from everyone else?
I think practically what I think some of the things are going to happen is you're going to sell that human connection at a premium price point, honestly, is what I think is going to end up happening. But in the sales process itself, I think the sales organizations that are elevating exactly what we're talking about here, the spot that's left to differentiate, which is who you are, what you stand for, and how you bring that clarity to your buyer, those are the organizations that are going to succeed. And I saw this data point from Gartner, and I want to say it was like, I should study these, 75% or something of buyers are going to want humanity
Oh,
in their buying process by 2030. And I was like, oh, looky here, how we sing our song. Yeah. For how long was I hearing from them? Like, oh no, it's all going to be all self-serve, everything. And I was like, well, thank you. At least you got there, right? That is it. It's the humanity that is going to be the differentiator. So 5 years from now, it's going to get very dire. The companies that are doing it are thriving. The companies that aren't are not. I don't think there's a whole lot of gray, honestly, in between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love your take, and it goes right along with my thought is, I sell tech, but it's I invest in people on our team. Like that's what I'm passionate about. Invest in people, invest in the sales profession. That's what we do. The tech that does that well should wrap around, the human and empower it. Anyhow, but hey, how do people? This has been an amazing conversation. We could talk for hours.
I know. I was going to say you're gonna have to give me the hook. It's just
let's. Well, can I ask you to come back on? That would be
absolutely
wonderful.
Anytime. No, I love it. You're talking to my people, so I'm happy to be here.
Okay, let's do that. And then, how do people find you if they're looking for Anita online? How do they find you?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. You can find the book on Amazon. Follow me, connect with me. I do most of my gabbing on LinkedIn.
All right. And any final thoughts as we close out the show today?
Yeah, just that the only differentiator left in B2B sales is the sales professional, that human being, who they are, what they stand for, and how they bring that to bear to create value for their buyer. That's it.
I think that's such good news for the people that aspire to be great salespeople. I think it's 100%. To make this a profession. I think that's such wonderful news.
Exactly.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Anita, thank you so much for coming on. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. This has been fantastic. As always, make sure you're doing the things, the liking, the subscribing, the sharing, the commenting, everything that can help get this message out there to help elevate the sales profession. And as always, from the art and science of complex sales, keep shining bright. Have an absolutely amazing day. We'll talk soon.